Oh yeah, Guillermo, you totally missed out. Oh yeah, you could have been working on this movie instead of just producing it. Instead, you just had to go make your fish love movie and win your Oscars. Okay, he did make the better decision to work on that. Pacific Rim Uprising is a sequel we actually did want for all of its simplicity, all of the wooden dialogue, and the average characters. Pacific Rim was a very fun movie, and it was one of those movies where you looked at it and going, Guillermo, you were just playing with your toys on probably the grandest scale possible. You think about a director like Guillermo del Toro and how much fun you have when you can tell he's having fun. And the thing I gotta say I love the most about it was that it had an incredible attention to detail when it came to world building and all the little things that they did in order to reinforce making this world believable. So it was a very imaginative film in a very familiar type of film that we've seen for decades. So the notion of a sequel was one that we all openly invited. And it was very impressive that we got one in lieu of the fact that the first one did not do well because for some reason people wanted to go see Sandler, you better stay on Netflix. So we have a sequel now. It's not directed by Guillermo del Toro. This time it's directed by Stephen S. DeKnight, who has a very impressive record on television. So the notion of him going into movies seemed inevitable. Maybe he aimed a little high on this one because the problem is producing a television show versus producing a movie. A movie is only anywhere from 90 to about 2.5 hours, and a TV show runs a span of maybe 10 episodes to 20, depending on what network you're on. The thing about TV shows is that you're able to flesh out a good ensemble cast over a span of multiple episodes. Grim Uprising, on the other hand, does have something of an ensemble cast, but the problem is with the ensemble cast is that the majority of them are focusing on our main characters. And it's clear that they're trying to set up the notion that they all have their stories and they all have their histories, but in the end, it's all about the way they interact with the main characters. Now, one con of the first movie was that the dialogue was a touch stilted and the characters were relatively cookie cutter with the exception of Idris Elba's character, but even then you really didn't know much about him except his relationship to Mako. So the characters were relatively simple there. So the one thing I gotta say about this one is that a little more effort's being put into the dialogue, and also the main characters actually have some kind of dynamism about them to make them memorable. Jake, played by John Boyega, Jake actually makes a strong lead character, and John Boyega carries the film with exceptional aplomb. I watched him in this movie going, you know what? You are Jake Pentecost in this movie. You are definitely not doing Finn. You, even in a fashion, could be like a more older version of his character from Attack the Block. That'd be kind of cool. Headcanon. As a plus, they also bring back Mako, once again played by Rinko Kikuchi. They do a really good job establishing a pre-existing bond, and as a result, we immediately have something, a connection to Jake. And it's impressive, seeing as we only just met him in this movie. And knowing what we know about him, leading into his meeting with Amara, it does actually help. Amara, who actually has a nice arc of her own, and some of my favorite scenes in the movie were her interactions with Jake. Now, when I saw them in the trailer, I was actually delighted because they were my favorite things in the first movie, were Charlie Day and Bird Gorman as the two eccentric scientists with differing ideals on the way they approach the kaiju. They're back, and they're game for it. Bird Gorman is still a lot of fun, and he actually gets a lot more play in this movie, which delighted me to no end. Charlie Day, on the other hand, I kind of want to be spoiler-free on this because the stuff in this movie has to kind of be seen to be believed. Now, we know Charlie Day is a comedian. He's on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and of course, Spaceship! The main problem with him in this movie is that they kind of do something with him which kind of destroys your ability to take a lot of things seriously. And it's all because of the fact that it's happening with Charlie Day. He's a very talented comedic actor, but the things they have him do in this movie, you don't give it to an actor like him. It doesn't work at all. And unfortunately, a lot of the major things that escalate the tension of this film happen because of his character. And I'm just like, when you're doing a movie that has a lot of world threatening stakes that you're supposed to be really pumped about, that you're really supposed to be freaking out like, oh my god, shit's about to get real, you don't throw Charlie Day into the heart of it and make all the things that are going to make the situation worse happen on account of him. Because immediately all sense of tension gets thrown right out the door. And you feel bad because the effort is there to try and make the tension great. And some of the build-up actually works to an extent. You have certain Jaegers that actually go rogue, and there is a nice sense of mystery of why are they going rogue. And the gradual revelations that come about as a result of it are intriguing. And then you find out it's all because of this particular thing. It really hurt the movie. For as silly as the first Pacific Rim is, you still were able to take it seriously. You were still able to feel things. The problem is with this movie was it was playing it a little too safe. You get the feeling that Stephen S. DeKnight only thought of Pacific Rim as a Godzilla movie, in the most B-movie sense possible. And while the genre is notorious for being something of a B-movie, the thing is Pacific Rim was a film that actually had a strong emotional grip. And this film had the potential of that. You had really strong characters that could have carried that weight. There was one character death, which I actually felt something for because they did a good job building up the character. But unfortunately, because the filmmaker was not taking it as seriously as I frankly think he should have, I don't feel the weight as I should have. Now I know I'm digging into it. It is a movie with big monsters fighting big robots, and Lord knows it's still way more successful than any Transformer film following the first movie. We've seen it done so well in the first one that everything else afterwards, I wasn't feeling it. You had an awesome setup for a big finale, but you just weren't feeling it because periodically you cut to Charlie Day and it was diminishing the effect. I'm not really going to dissuade people from seeing Pacific Rim Uprising. Frankly, I kind of encourage it because I do think there is a good sequel in there somewhere, and I will say the sequel baiting does intrigue me to the notion of what could come afterwards. So it's not a bad place, and John Boyega definitely carries the movie. His character is a lot of fun, and I would like to see where he goes further. I'd like to see where Amara goes. I'd even like to see where a lot of the cadets go because they were set up very nicely. Their interactions with the main characters were great, and it tells me that if they took the time to really focus on them, and because Stephen S. DeKnight is a television director, who knows, he probably could have carried it forward and developed them a lot further. There was potential here, but I don't feel like a lot of it was explored to the peak potential. In a television show, you can forgive one episode for not doing it because the next episode probably will, but not in a movie. Movies are high stakes. If this movie doesn't go, there's not going to be a next one. And they put a lot of eggs in this particular basket, and some of them got cracked. So in closing, I'm probably going to say Pacific Rim Uprising may not be worth spending money on, but it is worth your time. I'd say that's the best thing. If you really enjoyed the first one, I will not deter you from watching this. You might find something in it I did not. But if you're looking at it to be as creative and as interesting and as meticulously detailed like the way Guillermo del Toro did, you may be a touch disappointed. You might feel that it's definitely choppy by comparison, that you find that the storytelling is way more erratic and not as flowing as the first one is. While the dialogue pops a bit more and some of the characters have a bit more depth, it's not as graceful as the first one is. So with that, I'm going to give it my final Narcotic Casserole rating of... Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think this film is far superior to the first one? Or do you think that maybe it should have stayed dead by Adam Sandler's hand? No! Leave it in the comments below. And for more addictive content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click. Thou shalt be served.